Hi everyone, it's Kim from Fleece and Harmony. Welcome to episode 117 of the Fleece and Harmony Knitting and Crochet podcast. If you're watching this on the day that it's published, it's March 17th, 2023, and that's St. Patrick's Day. So I hope you're all having fun. I guess since we publish our podcast at 2:30 in the afternoon and it's going to be St. Patrick's Day, I guess I'm probably seeing most of you on Saturday instead of Friday if you're celebrating for St. Patrick's Day. I hope you're all doing great. If you're new here, I'll tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today in the podcast. And if you're an old friend that's back again, you know the deal. We start with a farm update. Today we're actually introducing Simone Van Eiderstein, who has started working here at Fleece and Harmony. And Simone has a really, really long relationship with wool and all kinds of crafty things with wool. So we'll introduce her. And I have my regular segment with Betsy, where we'll talk about our works in progress and what's happening in the mill. So in that section, Betsy will tell us about what she's learning in her new role here at Fleece and Harmony. We'll do a shop update, and I will do a Fibre Festival update, and as always, we'll finish with a Harmony part. This podcast is being recorded in my wool shop or yarn shop, which is located in the woolen mill on the sheep farm that we have in Belfast, Prince Edward Island. If you like what you see, I would encourage you to subscribe and set your notifications. We podcast every second Friday, and we would love to have you join us every time and get a notification when we have a new podcast up. So as usual, though, and also there is chapters in this. So if I'm talking about something that you're not interested in, or you want to skip to a different part, then you can do that with the chapters that you'll find at the bottom of your screen if you're looking at this on a computer or laptop or iPad or whatever. So we're going to start today with the farm update, and if there are people that are watching that are getting our newsletters, you know we had some kind of nervous times here on the farm. So I've talked about our old sheep Diva. Diva is about a 20-year-old Suffolk sheep that we've had on the farm since we started. She was actually an older sheep when we bought her, but she was part of a little mini flock that we purchased. And Diva, over the last, since about a year, she has lost most of her teeth. That is quite common with old sheep, as they start to lose their teeth and then they can't really eat properly, especially in the winter when they're asked to eat dry hay and there's not fresh grass to eat. So about a year ago, Diva was quite thin, and we discovered that she had barely any teeth left. So we started feeding her a special mash of alfalfa and some grain, and Diva put on quite a lot of weight. So she was kind of back to her fighting weight. She weighs over 200 pounds, so she's a big sheep. And she was doing great. And then 2 weeks ago, it actually happened the day after I recorded the last podcast. So that night, she must have slipped. She has arthritis. Her back legs are a little bit crooked, but she must have slipped. She went out of the barn at night with the flock. I don't know why they were out in the night, and it was quite a cold night. It was about minus 16 or so Celsius. She went out and she slipped. And when sheep get caught on, like if they lie on their side and they're a little bit too far over on their back, they have a really hard time righting themselves. And that's called, they get cast is what it's called. And when that happens, they don't do very well like that. That puts pressures on their lungs, and they can actually suffocate if they're too far over. A sheep can't lay on its back and stay that way for a long time. When Ken and I went out in the morning to do the chores, when Diva heard us open the door, she started baaing, and we looked over in one of we have like a little courtyard between two barns that we have, and she was there, and she was on the ground and her legs were in the air. So we, of course, ran over and to help her, and she'd been there long enough that her fur had actually started, or her wool had actually started to freeze to the ground. So she must have been there for a little bit of a time. and we were really, really worried because that it's really not good. So we rolled her over immediately back to at least to be on her side, like on her recumbent, I guess is how you would say, so that she was sort of, she couldn't sit up exactly, but we had put her in a place where she could breathe more easily, and we tried to get her up. But between the fact that she's old and her legs are kind of stiff anyway, and she was quite weak, we weren't able to get her up on her feet. So we didn't know what we could do because she was really heavy and it was like dead weight because she wasn't able to help us at all. So luckily we had just taken an old table out of the mill, and the table was sitting next to an outbuilding that we have. And Ken had the great idea that we would make a sledge out of the table, so we could roll Diva on the underside of the table, and we had the legs sticking up, and Ken hooked the ATV to the legs so that we could pull her into the barn. She was shivering, so she's pretty cold, and her wool was wet. So we rolled her over on the table, on the bottom of the underside of the table. We hooked the legs of the table up to the ATV with straps, and we pulled her into the barn. I got a blanket from the house, and we put it over her, and I got my blow dryer, and we started to warm her up. It took about an hour and a half of warming before she stopped shivering, but she was very, very weak. We were terrified. Our hearts were in our throat because she's already old and compromised in some ways. So we were really, really worried about her. And the fact that she had been there probably for a couple of hours, I'm not sure how long, we were really worried about her. She couldn't really even lift her head. So we positioned her in a position how a sheep would normally lie when they were sleeping, and warmed her up, and then we checked on her every hour or so. We tried to give her a little bit of water, but she wouldn't take any water or any food, obviously. But she was, we knew that her bodily functions were still working, because when sheep get a little bit nervous or stressed out, the first thing they do is pee. So when we got her into the barn, she peed. So we knew that things were still working. She was just exhausted and really, really cold. So we put her in the straw. We left the blanket over her. So even like after I had warmed her up, we left the blanket over her, and we just let her rest for a little while. And we were out checking the barn like every hour and a half or every 2 hours just to make sure that she was okay. Once she wasn't cold anymore, she was breathing normally. So the other thing is that when sheep are really stressed out or in distress, they breathe rapidly, and they can grind their teeth as well. So she wasn't doing any of those things. She just was not very active. And she couldn't really even hold her head up by herself, and her ears were kind of droopy. So we really didn't know what was going to happen. There was not really any kind of intervention that a vet could do. We knew what was wrong with her and that she just needed to warm up and get her energy back. So we nursed her. By the next day, so after we were checking her every couple of hours, but by the next day she did actually take a big drink of water. We put her in a pen outside of where the main flock was, because we didn't want the other animals milling around her and stuff. So we wanted her to just be able to rest. So by the next day she did drink some water, and she took a little bit of food, but not much, but she did take a little bit of food. And she was able to lift her head. But we tried to get her up, because we knew that it's not a sheep that heavy. It's not good for her just to be laying there in the same position. So Ken and I supported her and got her up on her feet. She was pretty wobbly, but she actually was able to walk around. So she took a few little tentative steps with support. And after about 15 minutes or so, she did start to walk a little bit better. So we knew that she was still, everything could function. And but we didn't want to leave her in the barn on her feet in case she fell and then got in a position where she would be in danger again. So we actually forcibly laid her down on a bed of straw, and kept the blanket over her because it was still quite cold, and we just wanted to make sure that she was able to keep her temperature up. And we checked her again every couple of hours for that day. We did the same thing the next morning. We got her up walking around, making sure that she could move. But she was pretty low, I would say. So Ken actually spent quite a number of hours with her that night in the barn, just making sure that she was okay and keeping her calm. By day 3, it went on like that for a week or so. We had the vet come finally because we didn't know if we felt that she wasn't really in distress, that she just was really, really tired and old. So, but we called the vet and asked the vet to come and take a look at her, and the vet gave us the okay to keep nursing her like we were. She did give her some medication for the stiffness in her hips, so it was Medicam, which is what people take for arthritis as well. And the vet said, well, she doesn't seem to be in distress, so if we can keep nursing her, then we could just keep taking care of her and see what happens. So we were really dreading the fact that we might have to take a bad decision for her benefit, but it didn't get there. She had some days that were up and down, and then she did develop kind of a little bit of a snuffy nose, which could indicate pneumonia, but it turned out it wasn't pneumonia. And by the 4th or 5th day when we got her up, she wanted to go with the rest of the sheep. So she actually looked kind of depressed. So we ended up putting her in the pen with the other sheep, but we weren't sure if she could get up on her own because she was always laying down when we went in the morning. So then they have access to the outdoors, as I've said before. So then about a week into this whole thing, we looked out and she was actually outside in the morning with the rest of the sheep. So she had obviously gotten up on her own, which was a really good sign. And but she really wasn't still eating her alfalfa. She was chewing at some hay, and she was eating some of the hay chaff that falls off of the bales, like where we feed them. So she was getting some nutrition, and she was obviously drinking because she continued to pee and poop and everything. So I think she was just like really exhausted and a little bit depressed that she wasn't with her friends for a few days. And now we're happy to say by yesterday, she was actually just kind of back to where she was. She's still an old sheep, but she was kind of acting pretty normal. And this morning she ate her regular breakfast like how she would normally eat it before all of this happened. So we're really, really thankful. We think that she's pretty much out of the woods, and things seem to be good. The vet is going to come again this week just to check on her to make sure. And we think we're going to put her on arthritis medication because she still has arthritis, which is an underlying condition that she had. So we're going to start to treat her for that so that she's as comfortable as possible. And fingers crossed, we think it's good news on Diva. Then our cat, Clyde, who is the purring machine, I've showed her on the Harmony moment because she's always purring and it's just really calming and cute. She started to act kind of funny and just wasn't right. So we were watching her. We had her to the vet. She developed an abscess on the side of her face. So she's mostly inside. She used to be a barn cat, and then in the last year or two she's mostly been inside, but she still likes to go outside sometimes, but she's never out for very long, like a couple of hours at a time. And we woke up one morning about a week ago, and she had this huge lump on the side of her face. So we called the vet immediately and took her to the vet. And when the vet looked at it, it was an abscess, and she thinks that she got in a fight with another cat. We don't have another cat, but there are stray cats that are around from time to time. We don't see them often, but we do see them every now and then. So they must have gotten into some kind of a tussle, and she ended up with an abscess. And the vet said it could have happened like 2 weeks ago, and it's just now coming out of the muscle. And so we had to take her and get her some shots. They had to drain the abscess and they shaved all the fur off around it, so it looks awful because it's all like kind of scraped up and stuff. The abscess went away, but she seemed to be acting weird, and there was all kinds of different things. She was having like twitching, and she was just not herself, and her stomach started to get fairly round. So we became worried that, because she's a tiny cat, she only weighs about 5.5 pounds, but her stomach became round. So we took her to the vet again, and they did blood tests and blood work, and she actually has a thyroid problem. So she's got a hyperthyroid, and the vet thinks that it might have caused some things like with fluid and everything, and there might possibly be congestive heart failure or problems with her kidneys. So she's under veterinarian care. She has to take thyroid medication, so we're giving her thyroid pills twice a day. And they want to see her back again in 2 weeks. And if any other symptoms develop, then I have to take her back. But we're just waiting to see what happens. They're hoping that the thyroid medication will help her, and all of these weird symptoms that she's having will disappear. And that will be the key to she'll just have to take thyroid medication for the rest of her life. But they think that's what we're hoping it is, because if it's not that, then it's something else. And the vet was pretty frank with me and said it's probably not good news if it's something else. So we're dealing with that. So it was pretty stressful animal-wise on the farm. Everybody else is okay, but we've been pretty worried about our two older girls, Clyde and Diva. Diva seems like she's going to be okay. Now we're worried about Clyde because we don't know exactly what's wrong with her and if she's going to get better, but we'll know when she gets like the levels of the thyroid medication get up in her body, and hopefully we see some improvement there. So that's it. I'll keep everybody posted in the newsletter, and but I think we don't have to worry about Diva, and now we're worried about Clyde. So that's about it. So the next segment we're going to go to is I'm going to introduce Simone to you, and you'll be able to meet her and hear about her wool journey and what she's doing. And she's a great knitter, so we'll be able to see all of that, and you'll be able to meet her. So we're going to hop over there right now. Hi, Simone.
Hi, Kim.
And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. This is Simone Van Eiderstein from Sand and Sky Creations and Fleece and Harmony. Yeah. And you've heard me talking about her for the last month and a half, 2 months already? Yeah, 2 months already or more. And so here she is.
Time's flying, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, it is. So I'm so happy to have you here sitting next to me. And she's got her love notes on.
I do.
Or love note, I should say.
Yeah.
So Simone, I thought we would just start with a little bit of introduction about I was going to say your knitting journey, but your journey with wool is much more than just knitting.
Yes.
So just tell us about, I think you do all the things.
Getting there.
Yeah,
I'm getting there.
Okay. So did you start with knitting?
No, actually, I started with crochet.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah.
So all the crochet people are going to love to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you started with crochet, and then what?
Well, I'm left-handed.
Okay.
So that always causes a little bit of an issue whenever it comes to handicrafts.
Right.
As many people know.
Yes.
And crochet was one of those things that was just easier to pick up.
Oh, okay.
My grandmother taught me.
Okay.
And it was just, it made more sense at the time.
I wonder how many crafters there would be if there weren't grandmothers.
I don't know.
I
don't think there were many, right?
It's always the grandmothers. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay. So she taught you?
She did.
Yeah.
And my very first project was a little crocheted granny square Afghan. Just a little tiny one for my cat.
Oh, okay. So your love of cats. She's a cat lover, everybody. Yeah.
So it started from there, and whenever I was a little bit older, so in my 20s, I decided that I was going to pick up knitting.
Okay.
And I taught myself how to knit.
Okay.
So through trial and a lot of error.
Yeah. And not with YouTube.
No.
You had to use a book?
YouTube. I use books.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
books and sheer stubbornness.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of the left-handed thing.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this before on the podcast, that I'm actually the only right-handed person in the shop, which is really strange.
Yeah.
So people that come in and say, "Oh, well, I'm left-handed," I said, "Well, there's plenty of people to show you something if you want." But I find that left-handed knitters have more unique ways of knitting, but I think that's because you were forced to almost learn on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think
a lot
that's
of times
true?
I think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know if you have special things that you do that other left-hand knitters don't do?
I'm not sure if I have special quirks in that way, but I definitely have quirks.
Oh, yeah.
So like some things that are common for left-handers is we go from left to right instead of the way right-handers do. So
does that mean you do everything the other way around? Like you read the charts in the other way? Oh God, okay.
Yeah. And it means that a lot of times if you're reading a written pattern, you need to mirror your decreases.
Oh, okay.
So there's a lot of like playing around with stitches to make sure that things look the way they should.
Ah, okay.
And you get really good at reading your knitting.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing though.
Yeah.
That is good for everybody.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, but then it didn't stop with knitting.
No.
Then what was next?
The drop spindle.
The drop spindle.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I discovered the wonderful world of the internet, and knitty.com was one of the first like online knitting magazines that I came across, and they had some features about hand spun yarns, and I just fell in love and I thought I want to do this too.
Oh, okay.
So I picked up a cheapy drop spindle,
Right.
and it took a while, but I was finally able to produce actual yarn.
Okay. Which was very satisfying.
Yes. But again, there wasn't a lot of tutorials other than the odd written tutorial online at this point in time. So it was a lot of trial and error.
Right.
And we're so lucky now because there are so many resources for people to learn.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to put in a plug right here that Simone is actually going to teach drop spindle at the PEI Fibre Festival.
Yes.
And you get to make your own drop spindle too,
Yes.
right? So it's from scratch.
Yeah.
So, and did you make your own at the time or did you buy one?
I bought it.
You
for
bought
a
one?
$5.
Oh, okay, good. So it's really good. Like that if people want to learn to, the very first person that showed me how to spin, because I actually took hand spinning lessons from Simone. I begged her to come over to my place and teach me every week. So we did that for a little while. But before I did that, I tested out if I was going to like spinning. And the lady that I talked to, she said, before you even go on the spinning wheel, she said, use the drop spindle so that you get a feel for the yarn. And it's really good for that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fantastic way to get a feel for how you need to move the wool in your hands, how you need to move your hands. And it's also kind of a more economical way to learn.
Yes.
So if you really love it, you know, there's no problem buying a wheel.
Right.
Or, expanding your spindle collection.
Right.
But if you go out and buy a wheel right off the get-go, sometimes things can be a little bit harder.
It's like a lot of things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a lot of coordination.
And I have a friend here that actually drops spindles and makes sweater quantities of yarn and knits it, which that's
amazing.
It is amazing. She came one day and she had all of the yarns that she made, and I said, "Oh, I thought you just drop spindles. I didn't realize you used the spinning machine." She says, "No, I did it all on this drop spindle." I was really impressed. So she used it because of there always seems to be like some kind of emotional connection when we do things with our hands, I find, or not always, but sometimes it's really beneficial. So she did all of that, and the reason why she was coming over here is that her father was in the Gillis Lodge and he wasn't doing well. So that's a senior's home that's right next door to us, and she would visit him and he would be sleeping, but she would be doing drop spindling while she was there. So it's like kind of like the perfect portable craft,
definitely.
like to bring. Yeah. And then it didn't stop there.
No.
Then what was next?
Well, I got my wheel.
Okay.
And I have quite a spindle collection that I keep adding to, but I also branched out into weaving.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've got crochet, knitting, drop spindling, wheel spindling, wheel spinning, and now weaving.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And you practice all of those things.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And you also do cross stitch?
Just starting.
Just starting.
Joanne.
Okay, yeah.
Joanne's got me going on it.
Yeah, okay. And I think that's all. That's about all, isn't there?
Pretty
There's
much.
nothing other woolly stuff much. You get that, but
Yeah.
you obviously you prepare. You love raw fleece.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you prepare, do all the preparation and everything
Yeah.
too, right? Yeah.
Whenever I have the opportunity, absolutely.
Yeah.
And something else that I kind of tie in with that is natural dyeing.
Right.
So I
okay.
just dabble a little bit in that, just for my own pleasure.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So so Simone's very knowledgeable about a lot of things. So we're really happy that she's here with us.
Thank you.
And she does all of that, and I don't know how fast you crochet or how fast you spin, or well, I do know how. I've seen you spinning, so I know that you're pretty fast at that. But she's a lightning fast knitter. we go to this little knit night, and half of the night is sitting watching Simone spin because or not spin but knitting, and we're going like, oh my, okay, she's really fast. So she's wearing her love notes, which I showed as a cheater finished object a couple weeks ago, and there were lots of questions about it. So I'll just let you know, just ask you the question. So we kind of made a mess of what you did with the sleeves because we were trying to figure it out while we were showing it. Right. So you made longer sleeves on this than the pattern calls for.
Yeah.
And first of all, it's knit in Kidsilk Haze held together with chestnut sock yarn.
Yeah.
And were you able to get gauge with this combination of yarn, or did you have to mess around with the gauge?
I did get gauge,
Okay.
but then I completely ignored it.
Oh, okay.
Because I misread the pattern.
Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah.
So for people that are afraid to try new things, and we get lots of comments about, oh, you're such a good knitter and things like that, but it's not really, everybody does that. So I don't know how many thousands of knitted projects you've made, literally thousands.
I've made a lot.
Yeah, and you misread the pattern. I don't think I knew that. Okay.
Yeah.
So see?
Yeah, there's always something to learn.
Yeah, exactly. So what happened?
I knit my gauge swatch, and I read through the pattern because I usually like to read through the pattern
Right.
before I start anything, and I just ignored the needle size. So you're supposed to use a 4.5 millimeter for the ribbing.
Right.
I used it for the entire sweater.
Oh, okay.
And by the time I realized I had most of the sweater knit, so I'm
Okay.
like, well, I may as well keep going.
And you like the fabric?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the other really point that we should make is that we were discussing this, Betsy and Simone and I, is that you always do a swatch.
I do.
Yeah. Okay. So even as experienced as you are, you can probably predict how the yarn is going to work, but you still do a swatch. And why do you do that?
I just like to see how it's going to knit up.
Right.
Because sometimes if you've used a certain yarn or yarn combination before, it might have been on different size needles. It might have been with a different stitch pattern or
Right.
a different colorwork pattern, and
Right.
all those things will change how the fabric of your
Right.
finished project
Yeah.
looks.
Yeah.
So I like to see just approximately what that fabric will look like.
Right. And I just thought of this too, because when you're using a lot of like small production yarns as well, you like those like smaller companies and stuff rather than a lot of commercial yarns.
Yeah.
And we know here that every batch is a little bit different, so you can find that out with your swatch as well. Like if you're and speaking of swatch, it's kind of in a different direction than what I was going to go next, but we also talked about when we showed your Iditarod mittens that you use different weights of yarn in the same project sometimes.
Yes.
And is that on like on purpose, or is it because you have yarns that you want to use up, and if they're different weights you just see if they work together, or do you do that purposely?
Sometimes it's on purpose.
Okay.
And then sometimes I just want to use the leftovers because I do like to make the best use of all of my yarn.
Right.
I don't have a really large yarn stash.
Right.
So whenever I have little things left over, I like to put them into projects.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So somebody wrote and asked, how do you do a swatch with different yarns, different weights of yarns? And I'm assuming that she didn't really mean how do you do it, because you knit it just the same way as what you do. But what do you look for when you're doing?
Generally, whenever I do a swatch with different weights of yarns, it's a colorwork project.
Okay.
So I will do what they call a speed swatch.
Okay.
And that's where you carry the loops. So you knit across and then you carry the loops
I
around
hate that.
back.
Okay.
I do too, but
okay.
I find it's really useful because, you know, if you're going to be knitting in the round, it gives you a more accurate idea of what your project will look like. And it's also a really quick and easy way to see if those yarns are going to work together.
Okay. And have you had yarns that you tried to put together that didn't work?
Yes.
Yes. And so what happened? One was just too thin versus the others? Okay.
And then I just pull it out.
The tension
and
is just...
save it for something else.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. But you wouldn't have known that unless you had done the swatch.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that was sort of the questions that people had asked, but Simone is actually working on, so this episode is going to be kind of all over the place because we'll sit with Betsy as well later, and we've all got projects but I wanted Simone to show her Domino, which is a Jennifer Beale pattern that she's working on right now, and she's knitting it in Selkirk Worsted. It was designed in Selkirk Worsted.
Yes.
And I've already showed a picture somewhere by now, so we're even talking. But Simone chose a completely different color scheme for her Domino. So do you want to show us what you're doing?
Let's see here.
People will be figuring out, if I haven't already said it in the podcast, I'm also wearing a Jennifer Beale pattern. This is Ramea, which I've worn lots of times, made from Eldon Lace.
Yeah.
So then your Domino.
Okay, so this is Domino here, and I'm using, as Kim said, the Selkirk Worsted and the red gradient color, and then I paired it up with pine cone.
I pulled it here so we can see. So the Selkirk Worsted, we do these little bundles. There's 5 different ones, and this is the red gradient, which if I was picking colors to go with red gradient, I would say the last color I would pick would be pine cone. Because I just wouldn't even think about it. Yeah. But this is another thing that Simone is really good at. putting together unexpected combinations of colors that are just fantastic. So pine cone is and you knew it worked because it's kind of has a reddish undertone to it. Yeah. So that's why you took the chance and okay.
Yeah. I really love this color too. I'm all about the browns and the greens, and kind of earthy colors.
We were talking the other day about, I'm obviously reds and purples and things like that. Betsy, as you guys know by now, pinks and brights. Bold colored brights, and Simone is an earthy tone, but in unusual combinations, I think, too. So it's great.
So I'm trucking right along with this pattern. I'm almost finished with the body. Yeah. And these are the shoulders here.
Yeah. So the way that this works is you're knitting in the round.
Right.
But like you're knitting this way.
Yeah.
But you've created where the neck is going to go at the top. This is steeked, I think, right?
Steeked.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you've got the little ridges there.
So there's a steek up top, and then there's a steek on the bottom.
Right.
And I'm not sure where I go from there.
Okay.
I know that the arms are done sometime soon.
So are you a Jennifer Beale knitter that doesn't read ahead? Or do you?
I do read ahead.
You do read ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't read ahead because then I get completely, but we talk about this a lot when we talk about Jennifer Beale. You just have to trust the pattern.
Yeah.
It always works.
Absolutely.
Because you would not think that this is the way that this sweater goes.
I know.
But that's right. Okay. So you haven't started the sleeves yet?
Not yet.
No. Okay.
No. Hopefully this weekend.
Yeah. Okay, good. And I think, is this in the pattern? Because
it is.
Jennifer's given a good runway for the steek, eh?
Yeah. So you start in the center, actually, and it's a provisional cast on.
Oh, okay. So you're knitting on both.
And you knit the first half, and then you knit the second half.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think I'm giving anything away because she provides a schematic.
Yeah.
Her Ravelry for it.
Okay.
But these little holes here are actually the top of the shoulder, right at the neck.
Oh, okay.
You'll cut this out, and that's where your head goes.
Oh, okay. And so like a boat neck.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So fantastic. And so in the shop update, Simone and Betsy looked at all of our gradient kits, and they picked out a kind of an expected combination and something a little unexpected combination. So I'll show those in the shop update when I get to that. So that's great. So that's the Domino.
It is.
And then the other sweater that I wanted you to show is your Gratier. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
by Jared Flood.
Yes.
So this is another beauty. You're in your chestnut phase, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
Although this is a few years old.
Oh, is it already?
It is.
Okay, so was this the start of the chestnut phase?
It was.
Okay.
So it's one of those favorites. So it's a yoked sweater, and the pattern was written by Jared Flood. Yeah. And I had originally knit this as a gift for Judah for Christmas. That's my son.
Yeah.
And I gave him the stipulation that when you outgrow it, I get it back. So now that he's taller than I am,
yes, he sprung up like a, I don't know what, shoot of some kind. Yeah. So the colors in this, the main body is crowing.
Yes.
So I pulled all the colors. I didn't have them all in worsted, but we're just gonna show the colors. So obviously we do, if I say so myself, we do a good black.
We do.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a nice deep black. I'll just hand it to you and you can put it over there. And then the next color is the gray, and that's pearl, right?
Oyster.
Oyster. Okay.
Oyster.
Sorry, a little bit darker. Yeah. So so that's oyster, and then the next one is lichen, actually. So it probably looks almost white on the camera, but it's actually a really, really soft green.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. When I say different than what I would choose, because I'm so predictable that it's. And then came the chestnut. But did it start with the chestnut and then you went around the chestnut, or did you start with the?
I started with the last color, the fiddlehead.
Oh,
first,
okay.
And then picked colors that went with it.
Okay, and then fell in love with chestnut after that. Okay, so the last color that we were going to show is fiddlehead.
Yeah.
So that's what you started with.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
So, so and then built on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so great. It's beautiful, and you wear this all the time, right?
I do.
Yeah, it's a really nice design.
It's cozy, it's plushy, and
yeah.
Yeah, it's just a perfect throw-on sweater for everything.
Right. Okay. Okay. Excellent. So that's beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. So I think that's it. I'm going to talk about you again later because you tested some new tools we have in the shop. So I'm going to show. Yeah, I'm going to show that show that later. And I think we talked a little bit about the things we wanted to talk about. Did we cover all the bases?
I think so.
I think so. Is there anything else that we should say about the love notes? I forget.
The sleeves.
Oh, we went right off the track. Okay. So we're going to finish about the sleeves.
Yeah.
All right.
So the changes that I made with the love note sleeves, as written, the pattern has sleeves to about here. And I did try them on, and I didn't love the look on myself.
Okay.
So I decided to make them longer. So they're bracelet length.
Yeah.
And I did a fairly rapid decrease for the cuff so that they have just a little tiny bit of like balloon
Yes, that's
shaping
what we
to
noticed, and we were trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So it's straight down the sleeve until you got to the cuff, and then you went right in. Okay.
yeah, there's like no shaping whatsoever at all.
Until you get to that.
Until you get to the-
Oh, okay. Okay. So that I'm going to see if I think I can pull a picture when we had it held out, or else if bring it to work to the next time you come in, I'll take a picture again. So we can show it. And then you lengthened the back as well a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but that was the short rows to lengthen the back were in the pattern. You just elongated it.
Yeah, because my gauge, I had realized at this point in time that I used the wrong size needles.
Okay.
I knew that I was going to have to add a few more short rows in just to achieve the same look that the pattern had. So I just added a few more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and just on the fly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I think that's what we wanted to talk about today, and we'll see Simone again. she's gonna working on something special. And Simone is also the person that knit the Exploits Valley shawl that we showed from Jennifer Beale. Simone knits a lot of Jennifer Beale patterns.
They're a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see ya. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we're back. So we're just so happy to have Simone on the team, and we're looking forward to some great knitting and some great projects with Simone. And now, right after the Simone segment, we're going to go over to the session with Betsy and I. We've got an army of frogs now, and we've got all of our projects. And after we talk about our works in progress, we are going to do an in the mill section with Betsy as well, because Betsy has been really going to school in the dyeing room. So we'll see those two segments right now. Hi, Betsy.
Hi, Kim.
How are you today?
Good.
Good. We had a crazy day.
It was.
We were all working today.
It was good, but it was like, I think we all came in with an intention of what we were going to do, and I'm not sure we got any of that done, but we got lots of other things done.
That's right. Yes. So, yeah, we changed I asked for help from Simone and Betsy to prepare for the podcast. Then I got tied up in Fibre Festival stuff, and then I don't know. I don't know. Just got off course, and a color didn't go quite right. We can talk a bit about that for in the mill, and then you have to kind of adjust and figure out where you're going to go from there. So it was kind of a weird day, but productive in the end, which is great. Yeah. So I always talk about the weather in the farm update, but you and I always talk about the weather.
I know, and we need to.
Yeah, because I said in my newsletter, was it the last newsletter or was the one before, that in March there's always a storm.
Yes.
And it's usually around the middle of March.
Mid of March.
So while you're watching this, it's March 17th, and we'll be in a high storm that has lasted for 3 days.
This is what they're telling us.
Yes.
Although, and I'm starting to hear it pick up a bit. And I have a funny story about that.
Pick up? Meaning?
Like the wind's picking up. I can hear it.
Already.
And it's just starting to sound a bit like, I don't know.
It's supposed to start tonight.
Yeah, I think so.
And last till Friday.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Okay. So at breakfast, Matthew said to my youngest daughter, or was talking to all of us, so a nor'easter is blowing in, not sure about school. My oldest daughter's like, oh, man. And Evelyn goes, awesome. Are we having an egg hunt?
An egg hunt?
Exactly. I said, an egg hunt? And then I went, Easter. She thinks it's Easter.
Oh, a nor'easter. Yes,
we
celebrate Easter in a different month here.
So you'll have to explain to everyone who may not know what a nor'easter was, because I had to explain it to her, but you better do it in case I got it wrong.
Okay, so it's a northeasterly storm that comes in from the northeast. So, but that's funny. It's
that's right. I also said something about, we all need to get hats. And so I think the nor'easter hat, the big yellow with the down.
Okay. That's a sou'wester.
Oh, that's a sou'wester. Yeah. Oh my, sou'wester, nor'easter. When do you get a westwester?
That's a cowboy hat. Yeah, sou'wester. That's the hat you're thinking about.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. That is. So I was totally wrong too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's hard to get it right.
Nor'easter's blowing in.
Yeah.
We're ready.
The only thing we all agree on is storm chips.
Storm chips.
Yeah.
And in church, the reverend or the pastor, whatever you may refer to yours as, he talked about poor man's fertilizer.
Yes.
And Matthew and I both looked at each other and we were like, we know what that is now.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what farmers say to make themselves feel better when the big storm comes in. And I was talking about, in the newsletter, I was talking about it because I showed the Sheila's brush hat from the Saltwater Mitten Girls. And Sheila's brush they actually have a name for that storm.
Oh,
that
and it's
always comes in mid-March, and it's called Sheila's brush.
Well, now I'm going to have to look into why.
Yeah, well, I did look into it, but I've forgotten most of it. It has, it's tied to some kind of like fable or myth or something like that. And the Sheila's brush is what brushes away winter.
Okay.
It's ironic that she's using a big winter storm to brush away the last of the winter and get prepared for spring. But it does actually happen. And we haven't had really any big storms, winter storms this year, but this is supposed to be
a big one.
Yeah.
We've had just like little ones where they delay things by a couple hours because the roads need to be cleared or salted or sanded. Yeah. But we haven't had anything that's really kind of shut us down.
Like a really big blizzard. But I'm not sure if this one is going to be like that or not, but because there is supposed to be some rain mixed in with it. But We don't really have any snow on the ground anymore.
No.
Again, so
Not at all.
We really hardly had any snow this
So
winter.
now, Kim, we've become weather sensationalists because it hasn't even happened, and here we are.
And we spend a lot of time criticizing.
Yes.
You know, there's been more than once that we've come into work and say, "For Pete's sakes, we live in a winter country. Why is there a storm warning?" And now we're taking advantage of it.
Oh.
Gratuitous storm talk.
All right. So if there's a big storm and we're stuck inside, what are we going to do?
We're going to make frogs, I guess. Are we?
Yes, we are. We are. So I have. I showed my first one. That was finished. Now I took a picture of these because there's no way we're going to be able to hold all these little bodies
so you
up.
can send me the picture?
Yes, I will. I will do that. And I already did it this morning, so I don't forget.
Oh.
So this is the completed one. You may not be able to see
Simeon.
it real well. Simeon, yes. And now he has a bunch of siblings coming along.
And this is a Dot Pebbles pattern.
Yep, Claire Garland Dot Pebbles.
And we had to, of course, look up the group name for frogs. So Simone found that out for us.
And they are indeed an army.
An army of frogs.
So I am creating Betsy's little army of frogs.
Okay.
So this one has its legs now, but no wires yet.
Oh,
so that's what it looks like when there's
Oh yeah, it's much better with the
wires. Yeah.
Well, so then I thought you put the wires in before you sewed it on.
No, you add them after. Well, you know what? I'm trying to think if I actually read the. No, you do. You thread them through like a large darning needle, and then pull them up through the body. Yeah, or the body through the
Okay, because
legs.
I thought you took I was really impressed because I thought you had taken the arms off of Simeon and then put it. No, okay. And there's no stuffing in these.
No, not at all. It's just you create it so that it's an I-cord, so that it just wraps around, like it curls around itself.
Okay.
So that's that one. And then there's just a few other different colors. And it's funny how they all get like these different facial expressions.
Yeah.
Yeah. This guy has
he's
a
angry.
big old mustache on him. Yeah, he's not too happy. This one, my oldest daughter keeps saying he looks so sad because he's got these extra big eyes.
Oh,
so she's worried about him. He's got legs coming. I have to sew
or
in.
a thyroid problem.
Let's go with sad.
Yeah, I've already done enough talking about thyroid.
I'm not going to treat my frog.
Oh, okay.
Thyroid syndrome.
Yeah.
You have to tuck all these ends into, which isn't super fun, but also not terrible. Okay. And Simone also talked about another lady on Instagram who's taken these frogs. She has 2 of them, and she's doing stop motion with them, and it's so cute. Yeah. So I looked at hers and I went, how come her little toes are so perfectly rounded? And then I realized, probably if I just pull a little tighter. So this hand is actually different than this hand.
Oh, I see.
Where they're pointed, and then here they're a little bit more rounded and look more like a frog. So So when I tuck the end in, I'm just pulling that string a little tighter. So it just curls the little toe inwards more to make it rounder.
So is this, it's flat.
Yeah, it's still flat, and it's just a matter of how much tension I've put on my
when you put the end
weaved in end. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I love about amigurumi stuff, is just paying attention to those little details that just make it that much more finished and polished looking. Yeah. So we got a whole bunch coming.
As in most things, the details are what count.
The finishing does count.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I got a whole bunch going. So
army.
That's my little army.
Okay. And then let's talk about your shoulder.
Okay, sounds good.
Betsy had to do a deep dive on something, so you're knitting again now.
I am knitting a little bit again, and it is going better. I'm trying not to do as much. So I looked into the book that we had talked about, which is Knitting Comfortably: The Ergonomics of Hand Knitting
by Carson Demers.
Yeah, and we do sell it here. So I had a glance through it, as well as I happen to have a husband who has a kinesiology degree, so he knows a fair bit about stretching and posture and all of these sort of things. So I've kind of honed in on the 3 main things. Number 1 was my posture, which
you've talked about that before.
I think it comes with, part of it is being tall. So I'm not sure I was ever like uncomfortable being up straight. It was more just good posture feels like work.
Yeah, it is work until you get used to it.
Until you build the muscles around it. So posture is the first thing that I'm working on, and then stretching is another one, and he talks about those, and he has whole chapters on these things, by the way.
Yeah.
And then the last one being strengthening. So making sure that I'm strengthening the muscles around the weak ones so that everything can kind of hold itself together.
Okay.
So yeah.
So what kind of what do you?
I found some cool things in here. So he talks about swatching for posture. I know.
I love it.
Swatching.
I love it.
So what he says is you can work swatches with waste yarn and appropriate needles, but ideally you want to work some of them with the yarn and needles you're using for an actual project. I encourage you to purchase a little extra yarn so that you're sure to have enough to knit at least some of these swatches for every project. So without reading the whole thing to you, he talks about that it's a good idea to do some swatches so that you can focus on what he's taught you in training in your position and your posturing, and you're not worried about what you're knitting.
Okay. So just knit, do the process of knitting and practice.
But pay attention to the other things he's already talked about. So
I don't know, Carson, if you're going to get if they're not doing swatches to get good garments, I don't know if they're going to do it to get good posture.
Let me tell you, if you start ending up in pain, suddenly these things matter.
Yes.
And I truly have had a few moments where I've had to go, if I don't figure this out, I don't think I can knit.
Yeah.
And I love to knit, and it's part of my hobby, my enjoyment, my job. So I was like, this is not good. So I need to figure this out. So He also then, of course, he goes into stretches, so stretching before and after. And the point he made there that I thought was really neat is rest.
Right. I was going to say, what about knitting for hours on end?
No.
Yeah.
But he also emphasizes that stopping to stretch is not resting.
Oh.
So stretching is stretching. Resting is resting.
Okay.
So when you're stretching, your body is still in motion and it's still working. So it's important to also just stop.
Okay.
And I am a complete terrible at that.
Yeah, because you have your checklist.
I'm so like, yeah, exactly.
I don't have a problem stopping.
Oh, I do. And I can get sometimes on a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, I'm like, oh my goodness, this has been many hours straight where I haven't even necessarily, I even forget to like hydrate.
Oh, yeah.
Which maybe he talks about that. I can't remember if he talks about that or someone else talks about that. And I kind of giggled. I was like, they were talking about the importance of hydrating as a knitter.
Right. It's a workout.
Yeah. So anyway, lots of good information in here. He gives you full exercises, stretching, strengthening. So if you're having any issues at all, or you want just preventative, I definitely recommend this book and having a look at it. So it's coming along. So I'm in the phase where I'm doing a bunch of the stretching, and my husband has now informed me that, like, as of tonight, we're starting on the strengthening.
Oh, okay.
So
you have a coach.
I do. I have a coach. I have a coach who actually like enjoys this stuff.
Oh, okay.
So
you say that like you don't enjoy it.
I'd rather be knitting. I need a t-shirt that just says I'd rather be knitting.
But some of the things are fairly simple. Like you were telling me about the noodle you have, or whatever it is.
The noodle.
Yeah.
So it's about
a bolster, I guess it would be called.
I don't know what it's called. But it's a foam tube, and just as a matter of like, I lay on it for 3 minutes at a time to just open up my shoulder muscles, my chest muscles.
And what did you say to me when you were telling me about it?
Oh, I said, like, it's amazing. I get off of it and I take a breath and I can like fully expand my lungs, which with someone who has terrible posture, and if you're sitting like this all the time, your lungs are constantly collapsed. So you open up your chest and suddenly you're like, and I can like feel the oxygen flowing to my brain.
Oh. Good. But it's interesting because I've talked about this before, is that I can't knit for a long time. Oh, right. I said my wrist hurts. But I was chatting with my sister Michelle on FaceTime on Sunday, I guess it was. And I said, I have to knit because I have to have something for the podcast. So I was knitting, and we got into this huge, big discussion about a bunch of different things. And before I knew it, we had talked for 2 hours, and I had knit 2 hours, and I almost had my Maya sleeve done, but I wasn't sore. Okay. And I realized it's because I was sitting in a chair exactly like this, not on the couch.
Hunched over.
That's
so I bought this really beautiful reclining glider in my living room that I love. But I heard my husband say to my mother-in-law, I think the chair is going to have to go.
Not go,
but
really?
Just move.
Okay.
Move elsewhere from my spot in the house. We've always had a mom chair in my house. And so this is my chair, and everyone's trained. If I come in the room, they get up. Sometimes I even say, no, it's okay, I'm not going to sit down. So the mom chair might have to switch to something. You just
get another mom chair without arms.
A better supportive one. This one I think just leans back too much. So then I'm leaning back, but I'm coming forward
right,
to try to knit. And so my neck, my shoulders, everything is not ideal.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of an eye-opener for me that I had knit straight for 2 hours. It was a little bit more than 2 hours, and I didn't have a twinge.
Okay.
And it's because I was sitting in the chair like this. And I wasn't back, I was sitting straight because I was looking in the camera while I was talking to her. So,
and clearly you're relaxed.
There's something to be said for that.
There is.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. So that's that. So thankfully with that on the go, I'm able to move back into a little bit more knitting.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll go through your projects first.
Sure. Sounds good. Okay. So I'll stick to the knitting.
Let's start with the, sorry.
That's all right.
Go ahead. But why don't we talk about the Carina first?
Yes.
Because then when you talk about your Cordelia, then I will talk about my Maya right after.
Okay. So.
Sounds like there's a story.
Not a story, just I have to remember I'm learning this skill. I have high expectations of myself in life that when I do something that the first time it will be right and it will be good and it will be perfect. You're
so foolish. I'm so surprised. Why would I just expect it's going to be wrong?
Which I should just get my head
lower
wrapped
your
around.
expectations.
I know. Jeez, Betsy. So here it is.
Okay.
So my concern is, number one, yet again, I'm not sure my contrast is high enough.
Okay.
To really be able to see the pattern that's developing like hers does in the picture. So this is the back and this is the front.
Oh, okay.
And at this point, this should be looking like something.
Okay.
And it's kind of not. So I'm also thinking too low contrast and too loose a gauge. So when I switched from the single crochet, this is all done in double crochet. I'm using US terms. It's too airy and too loose. So there's too many holes. You can't see.
Yeah, you're right.
You can't see the pattern developing because there's just too much air going on.
You can see it a bit from the distance, but not like hers, not like in the pictures.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
And even just looking at her pictures, hers looks more closed.
Yeah.
So it's funny how you forget these things. And I thought, if I started this thing with a 6.5 hook, I have to carry on. And then why?
Yeah.
We change our needle size throughout
right.
knitting projects to get the proper gauge. So I think the double crochet is now the wrong gauge.
Oh, okay.
It worked for the single crochet because I went and measured it and it's fine. But the double crochet is not.
Too loose.
So I think I'm going to try going down a couple hook sizes and see what happens. And maybe... I don't know. I really kind of like these colors together. So, it's funny. Look, on this angle, I can see it developing. I can see the V's happening.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway. And then the other thing is I have run into some left-handed, right-handed stuff.
Issues?
I think so. So I probably am best, no matter what, to pull this back because I think there's some times where I was supposed to put the stitch behind and I put it in front.
Okay.
Because with Mosaic Crochet, this one is called... I'm forgetting now. Basically meaning it's on top of each other. It's not it's not...
Somebody had mentioned that in one of the comments.
There's two different versions. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And I think I've put things on top when they should be... Behind. Or I put them in front when they should be behind.
Okay.
So
you can see the pattern. Probably people from a distance will ask our producer. Can you see it?
Kind of, yeah.
Sort of.
So it's developing.
But, the issue, these are very similar to the colors that Sylvia used.
Yes.
But this is darker purple and this is slightly different.
It's a more golden
low contrast.
Yellow. Yeah. At least when I took a photo of it, it looked like I could see it better in the photo. So I went, okay, maybe it's not completely too low contrast. So I don't know if the color's the problem. I think what I'm going to do is rip it back and just start by decreasing the gauge.
Okay. All right.
And see if that helps.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
It's funny too because I'm doing this in front of you folks. If it was just me, I would have ripped this thing back like endless times because I wouldn't have cared. I'd have just done it over and over and over again to the point where sometimes Matthew will be like, "Oh my goodness, you're pulling it out again." But that's how I learn something.
Right.
So I apologize if you're going to see this over and over, but because I'm learning in front of you, it's going to happen.
Well, that's okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. So I still like it. It's an adventure. But yeah, there's a few things that I've caught on that I think are not quite right.
Right. So we're always learning.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's good. Okay. So then where are you on your Cordelia?
Not a whole lot further.
Because that's heavier, right? The
Yes.
project is heavy,
Yeah.
and you're finding that that's more cumbersome for your shoulder.
Which, what's his name again? Carson actually addresses that, where he talks about maybe needing to knit with support.
Oh,
So when you have a larger, heavier project, rather than trying to hold it on its own, like have something under holding it. So you're not holding the weight.
Right.
But there's a support to it.
Okay.
So I might have to give
like
that
a little
try
tray
too.
or
A tray
something.
or maybe, you know what, this is if I sat at the kitchen table in a proper chair. I know. It doesn't sound like fun, does it? No. So I'll have to figure something out that has a similar idea.
Unless Matthew is bringing you snacks at the table at the same time.
Canapes,
Yeah.
a little dash of wine and maybe some champagne.
Yes. And then that might make
Then
it.
knitting might be fun.
Yeah.
Oh,
Although
at the
you
table,
have to be
knitting at the
careful. I'm
table.
going to tell you about my Maya. You have to be careful about the wine.
So anyway, all I've done is added half of the next motif.
Okay.
So that's it.
Yes.
But it's 10 rows more.
And again, you've
than it
got 3
was.
sleeves done. So it's not like this is the only progress that you've made. Okay.
Exactly. But I did this last night for an hour. Then I did my lay on my hard pull noodle.
Yeah.
Whatever. It's a little wider than that. And then I went to bed and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm okay.
yeah.
So even just stretching it out makes
Yes.
a difference.
All right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
Okay.
there we are. And that's all I got for this
Okay.
week.
So I'm going to. I didn't bring my projects with me.
Oh my goodness.
They're in the back. Just a second.
That's hilarious.
Okay, and we're back. Nothing happened.
Oh, good.
So here is my sleeve, and
I'll hold this just,
yes,
I
it's
saw
gonna
that
roll.
happening. I'll
Okay.
just hold the
you can
ball in place.
anticipate that was what's going to happen. Okay, so just to remind people, this is the Maya by Kristen Drysdale, and you work the body first, and then I left the cord in here.
Wants to curl when
Yeah, you work the body and you do 8 rows of the motif on the body. Then you cast off here for one of the underarms. This is the left underarm. So we were talking about how smart Kristen was in the last episode, because she stops it at a place where it's really easy to delineate that you can put to line it up. And she does that because you have your sleeve, you have the exact same spot,
There it is.
like the contrast color, a row of the contrast color, right there. So now what's happened is the sleeve, and I meant to start attaching this last night, and this is where the wine comes in. Okay. So I had a glass and a half of wine by the time I got to here. And I looked at the thing and I was like, and then there was instructions that I actually had to read because it's not a technique that I've done before. And I said, I think I'd better wait.
Yeah, and after a full day of work and
it was all like 9 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, this is, I know what's going to happen.
Because 9 o'clock. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I know, and the time just changed.
Which means it was actually like 8 p.m.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, right. Well, that was the wrong excuse to say. Okay. So let me tell you about the sleeve, because I actually ripped out 2. Yes.
Oh no.
So you remember the last time we were talking and I was saying, I don't know why I just didn't go out and get the proper tools, because I do own a yarn store and sell needles. And because I had this is on a 4mm
You had
needle.
like 52 needles on there?
Well, I had 2 sets of circulars.
Okay.
And I had started out trying Magic Loop. I hate Magic Loop. I'm sorry for the people that love it. I really hate it. I hate Magic Loop. So then I was like, yucksing about that. I don't want to do them. I don't want to do. Yeah, that's another good one for you. I don't want to. Which is annoying whining is what yucksing is. I don't want to do Magic Loop. So then I got 2 circulars, and I thought I would try that, but I didn't go look at a video or anything. I just thought I could figure it out. How hard could it be? Anyway, I was doing it wrong. Okay. And then finally, I figured out when I was about up to here, how the proper way to do the 2 circular needles, but I still didn't like it. I was getting sloppy stitches in the middle, and maybe I'm still not doing it correctly, but it was efficient enough, but I didn't like the look of the knitting. So I said, why am I fooling around with this? And I did the whole debate that you do. Well, when I block it, that'll probably even out. Is that going to be even enough? I don't know. Maybe I can keep going. And I said, I cut my losses.
Okay.
So I ripped back to the cuff.
Right.
I actually got a set of 4mm 9-inch circular needles, and I put everything back on the needles, and I worked in 9 inches until I did enough increases that I switched to a 12-inch circular. So, and it went 3 times as fast, and it looks 10 times better.
Okay, good. It looks fairly, is it fairly fitted?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Because to me it looks that way.
Well, plus these needles.
That's right. You can't.
They're squeezed. It's squeezed a little bit, but it's gonna fit. And as we talked about with our yarn, it'll go wide and then it'll go up. So I actually did a little more than half an inch longer for the sleeve than what she recommends in the pattern. So I kept that in mind because I know that because I swatched.
Good job.
All right. So here and there's my line of your increasing.
Yep.
So they're here, and
which you can see them, but you can't.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were asking me something about increases and decreases.
Not increases
today.
as much, but decreases, which I think comes with your cowl cardigan.
Yeah. Okay. But this is exactly the same. We were talking about left and right leaning.
Yes. Oh, and I was wondering about, so sometimes it says slip, slip, knit. Sometimes it says decrease or knit 2 through the back was the new one I'd run across. And I was wondering why you would knit through the back versus knit through the front. And so we actually were doing tests with it to find out.
So we'll talk about that with the cardigan. In this case, you have the same thing happening when they say increase. Okay. Because you increase on either side of the marker and make this, and you have right leaning and left leaning increases. So make one right and make one left. Okay. So I decided at the bottom of the sleeve which one I wanted to do on which side. So do I want it to go right so that it comes out like this? Okay. Or do I want it to go so it looks like it's coming in like that? Okay. Well, go the opposite way. So I made a decision that I wanted it to go like this.
Which I think I prefer because to me, optically that makes sense. Yes. Because as something's getting wider, it should look like it's...
Yes, even though nobody's going to see it because it's under the arm and they're almost invisible. Right. So, so it's the increases are the make one right, make one left. Right. The decreases are SSK or slip, slip, knit and knit 2 together. But it's the same concept. There's right and left leaning. One? Yes. No. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So make one right and make one left is easy. Right. But in the decreases, it's SSK. So slip, slip, knit with L's. Yeah. So guess how that one leans?
To the left.
Yeah. Oh. And knit 2 together
with an
arm. And guess which way
to
that?
To the right.
Yeah.
Nicely done.
Otherwise, I would never remember.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. So so this is the sleeve. So I'm ready to join. So now what happens is that where I have the bound off stitches, there's 10 bound off stitches there, and there's 10 bound off stitches here. I match those together, and then I start knitting around.
So do you have to sew these up though eventually? How do those 10 stitches get attached?
Yeah, eventually you would sew. Okay. And then but I'm just going to, for now, I'm just going to start knitting. I have my stitch stopper here, but you're going to start knitting you've got the last stitch on the sleeve, and then you're going to start knitting. You join the yarn, and you're going to start knitting.
And are you going to go all the way around, or do you pause somewhere over here and cast off so that you have this for your other sleeve?
And then you start the other sleeve. Okay. And then you
attach.
Then you
that.
do the attach.
Oh, right. So you're only going to be allowed to go to here.
Yeah.
Do you have your other sleeve knit?
No.
Oh, okay. And then you have to knit your whole sleeve. Right. And then attach.
But if I have another call with my sister, I can finish it.
You'll have a sleeve.
It goes really fast when you're really concentrating. Well, I wasn't concentrating, but time was flying by. I actually knit most of it in a couple hours.
Fiddling around with shifting your needles.
No, I know. Well, that was it.
All you were doing was knitting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I like the small circumference.
Yeah, and the tension was right. Yeah. So it's good. So that's where we are with that.
That is going to be lovely.
Okay. So there were a couple other like details of the instructions, which after my glass and a half of wine at 9 o'clock at night, I felt like I wasn't sure of myself.
Right.
So it's not just a simple, like you place a marker somewhere.
Or something, yeah.
And then
Well, see, that's like exactly what I would have been like, I don't need this marker, and I wouldn't bother with it, and then I'd come back later and be like, oh.
Yeah, that's why you needed the marker.
That's why you needed the marker.
Yeah, so that's it.
Nice.
So we'll just put
Sure,
that
you
over
pass it
there. So now this is where I am on my cardigan. So
there is a lot of fabric going on here.
yeah, it's big, eh?
But it's going to be cozy and scrooshy and gorgeous.
Yeah, scrooshy especially.
Oh my goodness.
Not excruciating, but
Scrooshy, like.
it's actually.
Yeah.
I have to say that a project like this would not be something that would turn my crank normally because it's really repetitive.
Oh, okay.
Knit and purl every stitch. Okay. But the sleeves are garter. And but it's really enjoyable to knit with this yarn. And it's Rowan Kid Classic.
You do what you have to get what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the sleeves 2 at a time.
Kid Classic, you said. Right?
Yeah, Kid Classic.
I always like it because it still has that bit of like halo and fuzz that the Kidsilk does, but there's more body to it.
Yes.
So you make faster progress.
Oh yeah, it's thicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you can see how my sleeves are, you're increasing and decreasing, or sorry, you're decreasing on both sides. And
okay, so this side has that going on too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so there's the 2 sleeves. So we talked about the fact that when I got this nice straight edge on when I was increasing, because I was doing the increases 2 stitches in.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I was doing left leaning on this side and right leaning on the other
Would
side.
have been on that side.
On this side here.
Nice.
So what the Rowan patterns, once you've read a couple Rowan patterns, they use the same language in all of them. Okay. So what they said was you bind off like you would under a sleeve. Mm-hmm. So you bind off the first 3 stitches on either the beginning of the next 2 rows. And then it just says decrease. Yeah. So I'm doing so I'm just thinking, if I'm doing right, I'm doing knit 2 together. So I'm knitting 2 stitches and then doing a knit 2 together.
And do you do through front or back?
I do it through the front.
So you do it like it's a knit stitch. So you go to the second stitch and put your needle through there and then knit it?
So I am knitting 2 stitches.
Yep.
And then I just, I put in, sorry.
How do you do this?
Yeah, let me see. I put it in like I'm going to knit.
Oh yes, okay, the 2 together. Yeah.
Just you won't be able to see it, but I'm just
just like you're going to knit, you just hold the 2 stitches together.
Yeah, exactly. And nothing fancy.
Okay.
Okay, and that gives you a right leaning decrease.
Right, this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I slip off of I put the needle, I'm not going to be able to show this, but
knitwise or purlwise?
Knitwise.
Knitwise, okay.
In this garter stitch, this is one thing about the increases and decreases when you're doing it in garter stitch. Unlike stockinette, you can't see them. Like you know that there's something happening,
but you're not.
But you're not really seeing the stitches the same way as you do it with a smooth yarn in stockinette. Yeah, they're really kind of invisible. So
consistency is just important, just to make sure you're maintaining the same look, even though you can't really see. What it is.
Right.
Okay,
that's right. So if you did one way and then the next time you did it another way, you might be able to see a little bit of a distortion. Okay. And to your question about why would you knit 2 together through the back loop?
Yes.
That actually creates a twisted stitch.
Okay.
So if you were using that somewhere where you traditionally get some kind of a hole, then you would that would be a good place to use it. Okay. And when we tested it this morning, it actually looked neater.
It does look a little neater, yeah. And I mostly have run into it now that I'm doing like the little frogs and the little amigurumi. Right. And when you say that it's tighter, that makes sense because you don't want any kind of holes or space. Right. In that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And people will comment. There's probably other reasons why. And
sure, go
that
ahead,
kind of
tell
thing.
us.
Or they'll say, why are you doing that? You should do a lifted increase or well, it's a decrease in this case.
Okay.
But
It's like
there's
a lifted
probably
decrease.
Yeah,
I don't know that
no,
one.
just probably
Is
other.
the lifted? Oh, now I'm jumping into another one. That's the one I think Arna talked about one time about something about going to the grandmother.
Yep, that's it. That's it.
We'll discuss that one another time.
That's the one that Julie from Little Cotton Rabbits uses.
Yes, that's where I ran across it when I made the badger.
Yes,
That's
it's
right.
It's
And
a
it
really
is a good
nice
one.
It is a really nice one. Yeah. But that's for another day.
Another day.
Yeah.
Another
We'll
day,
talk
another
about
project.
the grandmother stitch. Okay, so that's the cowl cardigan. Did I say that that's what I was talking about?
I'm not sure.
All right, so now you can see the shape of how the arms are going to go. You do these decreases up until you get 30 stitches, and then you're going to end up with a point. And I didn't try this before I came over here. So
See if I can hold this while you hold all that.
Hoping that it's going to answer your question that you asked me weeks ago.
About how
which
it goes
was how does
together.
all of this go together?
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's definitely lots of seaming, but you don't mind that.
no. So I've got the back and the front.
Right.
Okay, so
And this isn't a cardigan, so it's open, right? Yeah, the front will be open.
So this is the right side,
okay.
the right front, and then the right side of the back is here. I don't think people are going to be able to see. This is not going to be good, but anyway, bear with us.
Okay.
But you can see that the sleeve, it's the same shape exactly
But not.
Yeah. So see, it's going to go like this.
So is this like shoulder then?
Yes. It goes up to the
Okay,
shoulder.
So to the, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll still have to see it when it's actually done to
Yeah.
really kind of get it.
Yeah. So you're going to mirror the shape on the body here on the sleeve,
Yep.
and you're going to just sew those together.
To there.
And then when you when that's together, then you just pick up the stitches around, and you're going to do the cowl. The cowl is going to be in the round in garter stitch. So
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just getting distracted by how this stuff feels.
I know, it's really
so
nice, isn't
lovely. And I love this stitch.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's the double moss stitch or the double seed
So
stitch. Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. I don't know if we can.
Zoom in and get
Yeah.
it there. There's just something about it. I just love it.
I know. There's just I know that's how I got into this mess. There's just something about it. It's lovely. Okay, so I think that's
It will be gorgeous, and it will be ready for next fall.
Yes. Yeah, it's good. And you know what? I mean, I'm knitting on 2 projects or whatever and doing whatever else and I'm doing. It does actually knit up fairly quickly.
Yeah,
Like
if you were to focus straight on it, but that might get a little boring.
Yeah, I have to do the
Variety
2
is the
things.
spice of life.
Right, that's right. Okay, so I think that's it for the works in progress. That's a lot between the 3 of
a lot
us.
going on.
We're
Yeah.
knocking some stuff out.
Yes,
so
we
that's
are.
good. And but we're gonna have another installment of In the Mill.
Yay. Okay.
And we had a pretty exciting week in the mill.
We did.
Yes.
I learned a few things.
Yes, yes.
yeah.
So Betsy's continuing her journey of doing all the colors.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I did a color this week called Twilight.
Right.
Which has some significant bold colors to it.
Right.
So it takes a fair amount of dye to get those big, bold areas of color to show. And so then I did it, and then I looked down in the vat. So I forgot to take pictures. My apologies. We will get pictures eventually. If you go back to, you did a series of In the Mill.
Yeah.
And I think there is a section on the dye room in there. So if
Yeah.
you really need to know, you can go look. But it's just a big, giant vat.
Yeah.
So there's a basket that you raise up, and then I looked below the basket, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of dye still sitting there. And I don't want to just flush that.
Yeah. Yeah.
For many reasons.
Yeah.
Practicality being the number one.
Yes.
What could we do with this?
Yeah.
So I just got the brilliant idea that we have a yarn called Heritage Yarn. And so it's a nice chunky yarn,
Yeah.
and it likes to eat a lot of dye.
Right.
So
We don't put it online because
No.
we don't do specific colors in it. We just dye it as we
as I'm
we
going to
want.
explain in just a moment.
Yeah, okay.
So in the pot, there is a series of 5 different colors at the moment, a couple different blues, a couple different purples. I don't know exactly how
All
much.
mixed together.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how much of each of those have hit the water in the vat versus stuck to the yarn that's actually there.
Right.
So we can't necessarily reproduce that color. So again, it's one of those things, if you want it, you'll have to come visit us.
Yeah.
So I just got the brilliant idea to put the Heritage yarn in there and use that to kind of like sop up
Exhaust the pot.
Yeah. So I'm having fun exhausting the pot. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's great because we carry that heritage yarn on the shelf and people come in and buy it, but we don't really, we know how many skeins we've sold, but we don't know about what color, or people just choose them. So you can put in as much as you need to, and then when your dye pot is perfectly exhausted, the water is crystal clear.
Perfectly clear. I wouldn't recommend drinking it.
No, I wouldn't recommend drinking it.
But there's no color left in it. And so then if you send it out into all that, there may be a tiny bit of remaining citric acid, which you do eat all the time.
In pickles. If you eat pickles,
I was thinking like fuzzy peaches.
Candy. Oh, yeah.
Pickles.
And we use food grade citric acid as our mordant.
Yeah. So there's no worries about it harming environment as it goes out.
That's right. So so now you solved a problem about waste, and there's not an environmental concern really, but it was just a waste.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways.
Color.
And then we never really make time to dye that heritage because it's not our regular yarn that we're doing, so we're spending more time doing the other. It's a very rustic yarn.
I was going to say too, so you might be asking, well, why don't you just let the yarn that you're dyeing actually soak it all up?
Right.
So if you do that, your wide stripes, small stripes, whatever they might be, will just get muddled.
In a variegated yarn.
Yes, in a variegated yarn, you have to be willing to remove it from the pot before all of that has actually stuck to it, or you will lose the design you've created.
In the definition and the colors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'll just become blended.
Yeah.
And like what happened for me, Twilight, which is a series of blues and purples, just became a really deep purple.
Yeah.
On the heritage.
And it's amazing how you took 2 batches of heritage with the dye that was left in the pot.
Yeah.
One is a really dark bluish purple. Yeah. And then the other one is a lighter one.
Yeah. And I didn't change the color at all. It's just the amount.
She just added more yarn.
Yeah. Amount
you took
of
out the
dye
first
on
one.
the yarn.
That's good enough. And then put the second one in.
Now, as a note, because I'm a new dyer, anyone who is actually a dyer might be going, well, for crying out loud, that was a lot of dye. You're right, it was. I should not have been able to do 2 batches of yarn following my 1 batch of yarn I intended to dye.
Right.
So in future, I will back off on the amount I'm using because clearly it was too much.
Right. But then you didn't waste it.
No,
so
I didn't waste it.
I'd say that's a good job. And it's good, sometimes there are colors that don't fully exhaust, and you don't want, I've done that before when I was trying to keep up with the dyeing as well, is that I pulled it out early because maybe I added too much for the color, or the combination of fibers was taking the dye a little bit differently. Yeah. So I've pulled it out because it was at the right stage.
Right.
So, but there was residual dye in the. You shouldn't be able to make maybe dark colors, but
or 2 more batches.
It would be more like washes if it was done properly, maybe. But it's good. It's good. It's great that you can do that.
You also mentioned too, which is something I'm learning as we're producing, or not producing. We're coming back round to yarns we've done in the past.
Right.
But things like Icelandic and our wild winds, they're all a little bit different. The type of fleece that we're using is different, and that actually affects the dyeing process. Yeah. So those different fibers will absorb the dye differently. Right. So like Kim said, we might have put in a color and expected to get what we get on our regular wool, and then you look at it partway through and you're like, oh, I've already reached the depth of shade I want. So so you need to pull it out before it gets too dark and it all just becomes dark.
Yeah, or a different color than what you even have listed. Yeah. Okay.
So as you can see, I'm learning lots. I have to give myself a bit of grace because it doesn't always turn out perfect the first time. Oh, wait, did we talk about that already? It should be perfect the first time.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently it's Betsy's running theme this week.
Yeah, well, that's okay. But it's a creative way to solve a problem, and it creates things that we have in the shop that we wouldn't normally make time to do, which we should be doing anyway. Nice. So, so it all works.
I think Ken had mentioned, too, that the heritage yarn is actually quite a nice yarn for rug hooking, I think he said.
Yep.
Because it's a little bit hardier.
Yeah.
And then rug hookers aren't necessarily looking for like solid, vibrant colors because they want them they want to paint with them essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
and since we've said it now a couple times, the way we've got heritage yarn is that we had a lot of fleece that we had we didn't want to use it in the mill because it was fairly short. So we sent that to McCausland's, and they were able to spin it where it wouldn't have been efficient for us to spin it.
And that's just a difference of machinery, right?
It's a completely different process. Like the machinery is different, and they spun it for us, and then we got that back. And because of the way that their machines twist the yarn, it has a different feel. It's more rustic than what our spinning does. It's not semi-worsted, it's more like woolen.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of this, so we just are using it up as we go. So, all right.
We did forget something, Kim.
What?
What are we wearing?
Oh, okay. So I'm wearing, I might have already said it with
oh, you
Simone.
may have. Okay.
Yeah, but you definitely need to say you're wearing.
So I am wearing For Fox's Sake, F-O-X, by Max Cyr. And I made it a little while ago. It's got our several of our blues from our blue gradient, which Kim either has or is going to chat a bit about, combined with pumpkin patch. Interestingly enough, I didn't use our Fox and Kits because I wanted that more bright, which I've seen foxes now, and I'm excited about that, and they aren't quite this bright orange. But that's okay.
Yes, you took your creative license. And And of course, I'm wearing Ramea by Jennifer Beale, knit in Eldon Lace.
And it's gorgeous.
Thank you. I thought it was going to be cool, but now I'm sparkling again.
No matter what, we're sitting under lights inside, so it's a bit toasty.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see ya.
Yeah, we wish you well, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Okay, bye. So there you have it, in the mill, exhausting the pot, and all of the projects that we're working on, and some great tips on exercising and how to stay ergonomically correct when knitting. So I hope you enjoyed that. The shop update is next, and we have a couple new things that I'm going to show. And as I alluded to in the section with Simone, we're going to talk about all kinds of different combinations of yarns that were chosen by Betsy and Simone in Selkirk Worsted, that if you want to knit a Domino sweater or do any project with gradient kits and with yarns, we came up with kind of a safe combination of colors and one that's a little bit more adventurous for each of the gradient kits. So I guess I'll start with that right away. So you saw the red gradient kit with pine cone, because that was what Simone was knitting together. So like we said, an unusual combination, but it looks fantastic. I'm sure you'll agree. But we also did choose two other colors that you could use with the red gradient kit if you wanted to do a project. So Crow Wing with the red gradient would be a pretty traditional color, but really outstanding. A lot of color pop with that. And if that was too dramatic, you could also use Slate with the red gradient to make a nice combination with color work. So that would be the red gradient. So lots of choices for that one. Then the Domino was actually knit originally with the blue gradient and natural. So just plain natural undyed yarn. But we really, that looks great, and it's pretty high contrast, but we actually really like it with sand as well. So this is the color Sand, and it's quite reminiscent of the natural, but it does give it a little bit of a softer contrast. And if you want something completely different with the blue gradient, you could also use Fox and Kits. And that would be very much like similar to what the look that Betsy had on her For Fox's Sake. She alluded to the fact that she didn't use Fox and Kits because she wanted a much more of an orange color, but you could definitely use Fox and Kits with this if you wanted to Domino or any other kind of color work motif. The next one I'll show is the purple gradient, which is all of the amethyst colors. One of my favorites, no surprise there. And Betsy and Simone picked Stones, which is a variegated gray color to go with that. So that would be a little bit different. And another really kind of crazy one, which would be really stunning, is to do it with, let's see, Selkirk Worsted. It's spruce. Yep. So the green with the purple pop is actually cool and very different. With the green gradient, that's this one. This gradient is really nice. It's based on our color Fur. So the darkest color is Fur. And then the second darkest color is Trillium, which is what Kristen Drysdale designed her Cordelia cardigan in. So this has some really great colors as well. It looks fantastic with Autumn Birch. And the pine cone makes an appearance again with this as well. The green and the brown is just lovely. So that combination. And the final gradient kit that we have is the gray gradient, which has crow wing and oyster, seagull, and pearl. And you really could use this with almost anything, but we really love it with amethyst brooch. And what's turning out to be one of our new favorite colors, an old color that Betsy just dyed because she's going through all the dyeing colors, and it's a low contrast, and it's crocus. So the grays with the crocus is really beautiful. And I am going to show you a picture, I think, here, because crocus actually looks really fantastic with fiddlehead as well, which we did a combination for. Joanne is knitting a new sweater, and we really like it. So the fiddlehead that she's using in the picture that I'm going to show is actually a batch of fiddlehead that didn't turn out as bright as fiddlehead normally is. And you saw fiddlehead in the segment with Simone as well. But we're going to reproduce that color, and we're going to call it something different because it is a little bit different from the way fiddlehead normally looks. But you can see in this picture these two bald skeins. They really look really great together, and it's an unexpected combination that really works, which I love when that happens. So all of those gradient kits were all in Selkirk Worsted. So that's a really good kind of deep dive on all the different really great combinations you can make with the colors that we have in Selkirk Worsted. I do have a new product in the shop as well, and it's called Newell's. I think that's how you pronounce it, the company, and it's a blocking wire set. So I had Simone test these blocking wires on a shawl that the lovely Nicole knit for us. So you may recall this shawl was knit in Eldon Lace in lichen, the color lichen, and it was knit for us by the beautiful Nicole, and she sent it to us. I don't know if you can see, but I am going to have a picture on the blocking wires. So with traditional blocking wires, when you block this shawl, you kind of get a little bit more points on these scalloped edges, come out a little bit more like points, a little bit more angular. But if you see the picture of how they're blocked, you can see that with these wires, these new wires, you can get a really smooth curve. So the little kit comes with the T-pins. So you have T-pins, and there's a warning on this container that says be careful when you take the wires out of the can because they snap open, but I'm going to take them out and I'm going to show you. Okay, so these are the wires, and they're completely flexible. So we were wondering about how well they would actually block the lace because they're so flexible. But as you saw in the picture, it actually really gives you a lot of control of what kind of shape you can make with your shawls. So Simone really enjoyed using them. She said her review of them is that they were great, and they have really a good application for something that has like a lot of curves and everything, and they were much easier to get those kind of shapes than with the traditional stiffer blocking wires. She did say that she wouldn't completely replace her regular, like the stiff straight blocking wires with them, because there are times when you really want to have like a nice big point. So she would use both, but for something where you want to have a little bit more subtlety and curves and things like that, she felt that they were fantastic. And they don't have a memory, so they're a kind of wire that doesn't have a memory, so you don't need to worry about it getting kinks and things like that. And if you have a set of traditional blocking wires, you know that it's kind of a little bit of a pain to store them because they're in a big long tube. And this is just such a nice little kit. They are a little bit pricey, but if you do a lot of shawls and you want the convenience of this, I think they're well worth it, and the quality is excellent of the product itself. So these are a new twist on blocking wires. We also have, and I just gotten a few sets of them in. So what I'm going to do is, now that we've tested them, I will order more. So if you order those blocking wires, I'll ship out the ones that we have right away, but I will place another order. So your order may take a week or two, or probably a couple weeks to come if we continue, but I'll try to indicate that when it becomes a pre-order. The company that I buy them from is really, really quick, so it usually just takes a couple days for them to ship the order to me. We also, I don't know, we carried pom-poms in the mill, and they were made by a local person, but it's really hard to keep them in stock. She was having a hard time sourcing the material for them, the fabric, the pom-pom fabric. But I did find a supplier for pom-poms. So they're not real fur, they're not reconditioned fur coats or anything. They are faux fur, but they're really, really nice. They're snap-on, so you have a snap in the bottom of the pom-pom, and you sew the one part of the snap to the hat that you're putting the pom-pom on, and then you pop the pom-pom on. I have these colors, 4 colors. This light taupey brown one. I have silver. They're really nice and big and full. Silver. And I have white with slightly black tips. You can barely see it. They're not too black. It's just light black. And then I have this really cool color, which is charcoal. I think this might be my new favorite. So we have this one, charcoal. And you can just see how nice and full they are. So those are in the shop. We still have some more Rowan books that we haven't looked at that are new. So we're going to do 2 slideshows in this podcast. And the first one is for Mode Collection 8. And if you've watched me before, you know that I love these Mode books. The patterns are usually in muted and natural tones. So they're really meant to be kind of like foundation pieces in your wardrobe. And this one, Collection 8, is really, really nice. So I'm going to hop on over to the slideshow for the Mode Collection 8. And I would draw your attention to the pattern, which I'm going to show it to you in the book because I want you to take a look at Padron, it's called. I love it. It's a little sleeveless t-shirt with a collar. So you'll see the views of it on the slideshow, but I think that's the pattern that I would be tempted. It's knit out of Summerlight DK, which is the Rowan cotton yarn that you all know that I love, and I knit my Cornwallis sweater. So that might be a project coming up for me. So we'll take a look at the Mode Collection 8 slideshow, and we'll be right back. So that was that, Mode Collection 8. Again, another great edition of that magazine, and you can, or that book, and you can see that it's really muted, easy colors. Lots of those designs would look great in really pop, colors that pop as well. And we're going to go to another slideshow, which is another little book called Hide and Seek by Martin Story. And I featured this on my last newsletter. And but the people that are watching the podcast and not getting the newsletter, you can see the slideshow that I'm going to do for this book, and it's all children's patterns, and they're really, really cute as well. They've got lots of little nice motifs like little giraffes. It's kind of like a day at the zoo or a day at the beach. That is kind of the theme, and of course Martin Story patterns are always reliable and great. So we'll hop on over to that little slideshow. And there you have it. I think that's it for the shop update today. So lots of ideas. I hope that I've been able to inspire you on some kind of different combinations of colors that you might have not thought of. And I know sometimes it's hard to purchase online because you never know about how your screen is going to look and everything. But I hope that seeing those colors together will help to give you some inspiration to try new different combinations of colors. I'm going to talk just a few minutes about the Fibre Festival. So the PEI Fibre Festival is, the organizing committee is actually ramping up. We had a huge meeting last Friday, and we're settling on all of the instructors, and the vendors have started to become approved. So we still have room for more vendors. So we did set a date for March 3rd for the applications to be in, because that's the date we were going to start selecting the successful applications. But we still have some room, and you can put in an application if you're watching and you're a vendor and you think that you might want to join us at the Fibre Festival. We still have a few booths left, and we will continue to take applications until there's no booths that we filled them all. But we did want to wait until we had a good selection to go through, and we could do we looked at all the different applications and made decisions. So what we're looking for, just to be clear, is that we want the people that join us at the Fibre Festival to be able to see a selection of yarns from small makers and dyers. We do have a few accessory producers that are coming as well, like small batch production and things for accessories and bags and things. But the focus is mostly yarn. We have a few different things as well, and we have one or two people that are bringing finished projects, but they have kind of a theme to them. So you'll be able to. We'll start listing the vendors that are going to be there, and we have had a lot of applications for instructors. So we're really, really thrilled about the great choice of people that we're going to have visiting us. So I mentioned before in the last podcast that Patty Lyons is going to come. Kristen Drysdale will be there. Sue Matten from Wallflowers, the crochet maven that we love, she is coming. And we have a lot of other really great people that are just in the process of finalizing their contracts and things, so I don't want to say too much, but I think we have a fantastic lineup of classes and instructors, and we are going to have more classes than we had last year planned. The hotels, a lot of hotels have offered great rates for the Fibre Festival, and they're all accessible through links on the Prince Edward Island Fibre Festival website. And if you want to be the first to know about things, then you can, there is a newsletter that's going out, and we're sending out information to the newsletter subscribers as well. So you can sign up for the newsletter if you want to learn more on a more regular basis. I will say we had a question, the committee had a question about from a customer that wanted to know if people that were successful in buying tickets last year will have first choice for tickets for some of the classes that we had that are going to be reoffered this year. And the committee did decide that that's what we will do. So people that had tickets last year will be notified when the tickets are going on sale for the classes for 2023, and you'll have first chance to purchase tickets. Then we will do a general pre-sale of tickets for all of the newsletter subscribers. So if you didn't have tickets last year, but you're a newsletter subscriber, you'll have the second chance to purchase tickets. And then after those two groups of people have had chance to purchase their tickets for the Fibre Festival, the tickets will go on sale to the general public. And we think that timing will be somewhere, it's probably the last week of April that the tickets for the general public will be available. So we're getting really excited. Again, the dates of the Fibre Festival are October 5th to the 7th. It will be held at the Delta in downtown Charlottetown. And we'll have the marketplace, and we'll have all of the classes that will run as well. So I hope I get to meet a lot of you there at the Fibre Festival in October. And I think that brings us to the harmony part. So I have two choices for the harmony part this week. I have a frosty morning, because the other morning, yesterday, was it yesterday or the day before, we had a gorgeous morning here. The sun was brilliant, but we had like an ice fog at around 5 o'clock in the morning, and that froze on all of the trees. And I hope that the pictures that I took come out with the way as awesome as how it looked in the morning. It was like magical. So I will look at all those pictures, and that may be the harmony part. Or the second choice is we have a lot of eagles around right now, and Ken took some great footage of eagles on some of the frozen river edges and ponds around areas, in a couple of areas that are close to our farm. So it's going to be one of those things. So with that, I wish you a happy and joyful 2 weeks, and I hope all of your projects are a success. But if they're not, you can always just whip and rip and redo like the rest of us. We're all doing that, it seems, these days, as you saw from the podcast. So have a lovely 2 weeks. Stay safe and happy, and may you find joy in your crafting and enjoy the harmony part. Bye.